One of the highlights from UFC 295 that is kind of flying under the radar was Jessica Andrade's lopsided victory over Mackenzie Dern on the main card, being the first fighter to finish Mackenzie Dern in her career. This is a huge win for Andrade, and in my opinion, a missed opportunity for Mackenzie Dern. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video, how Dern has really put herself in a tough spot in her career going forward. Now, let's talk about the optics going in here. Mackenzie Dern was riding high. That win over Angela Hill, she looked great. Her striking was on point. She's got great jiu-jitsu, but the striking had really come a long way here. And honestly, myself and a lot of other people felt like she was turning a corner here. Her separation from her ex-husband, it looked like she was a completely new fighter. And that was not the fighter we saw on Saturday night. And that is not taking anything away from Jessica Andrade, but it was really kind of an eye-opener just how much she struggled with a fighter of Andrade's caliber. And on the flip side, Jessica Andrade was coming into this fight on 3 straight losses, all stoppage losses. I don't think I was the only one who thought this. In fact, I heard other people mention this as well. It looked like Andrade was just picking up a paycheck, right? She was, this is her, 4th fight this year. She was losing all her fights pretty decisively. And, they have a common opponent in Yan Xiaonan. Mackenzie Dern fought Yan Xiaonan to a majority decision in a fight that she actually looked pretty good in despite losing. Whereas Jessica Andrade got finished in the first round. So, going in, we all thought, okay, Andrade is just here picking up a paycheck. She's not really caring that much about her career. And granted, these are all good opponents. We got to mention that as well. Suarez, Yan, Blanchfield, all title contenders, right? But we also heard the comments about Andrade saying that she had to basically pay for her divorce. So it really did look like she was just kind of taking this to, pick up some extra cash. And that's not what resulted on Saturday night. What ended up happening was, again, like I said, a one-sided beatdown courtesy of Jessica Andrade going into this fight. Now, there were a couple things that we found out sort of in the fight. I mean, let's talk about the fight itself. First and foremost, as I'm watching this, I did not have a chance to speak to Dern ahead of this fight. She isn't working with Jason Perillo. What happened there? That seemed like a match made in heaven. We saw the improvements in Dern's striking. The fact that she wasn't working with Perillo, immediately when I heard that when the fight had just started, I thought, okay, that's a bit of a red flag. Then it was a matter of her not being able to get Andrade to the ground. So who's the better striker? Of course, it's going to be Jessica Andrade. And Dern honestly looked a bit lost out there. Like Rogan mentioned several times during the fight, she was keeping her head up. She was an easy target to hit from Andrade. And, Andrade was landing early. And it was one of those fights, and I don't know how you guys felt watching at home, but it was just like you knew the inevitable was going to happen, and that was Andrade was going to knock out Dern, or at the very least, she was going to leave her in really bad shape if Dern wasn't getting finished as well. And Dern was struggling to get, like I said, Andrade to the ground. She decided to strike with her instead. I don't know, I shouldn't say decide, but maybe she had a hard time getting her to the ground. I couldn't really tell, but either way, if you're going to strike with Jessica Andrade, it's probably not going to go very well. So yeah, that was a big concern. And then of course it culminated with a second round finish from Jessica Andrade anyway. So one thing that I have noticed, and I've covered Mackenzie Dern's career dating back to when she was in LFA. And for those who don't know, obviously a big deal in the jiu-jitsu world. She came over to MMA, had a few issues with her weight cut, but that sort of got settled out basically after she became a mom. We haven't really heard any issues of her making straw weight, but it was an issue for her, even on the regional scene, about her missing weight. But the thought was like, okay, she's this jiu-jitsu sensation. She's obviously very marketable. It was sort of thought that Dern was going to be like this force in the strawweight division, and it hasn't really worked out that way. So one of the things that we have noticed in Dern's career, and I'm not saying this is the reason she lost this fight, but it is worth mentioning, is that Dern has made a lot of changes throughout her career. So let's start first with the fact that Mackenzie Dern actually started, and I don't know if you guys remember this, she started her career with the MMA Lab in Arizona, and that's a really good gym. That's John Crouch, that's Benson Henderson, that is, Sean O'Malley trains there, right? Like this is a premier gym. And I don't know exactly what happened there, but there was some type of falling out at the gym, and Dern ended up leaving and moving to California and training there. And then while this is also going on as well, for a couple more fights, she had left, obviously, the lab and then was training in California. She also switched up management. So initially she was with Ruby Sports, went over to Paradigm. Well, something that happened for this fight against Andrade, we know that obviously she had switched things around from gyms. She was most recently, prior to this fight, training with Jason Perillo at his gym, training with Luke Rockhold, Tabitha Ricci, all those great fighters. I don't know where she trained this camp, but I did not recognize anyone in her corner, except I think her dad was in her corner. I'm trying to remember. I have to go back and watch that, but I don't know what type of camp she had coming in. But here's the other thing I don't know if a lot of people know. She actually switched management again. So initially she left Ruby Sports and went to Paradigm. She wasn't with Paradigm that long, only a couple fights. And now my understanding is she's with new management. I believe it's Tiki, who's the same person who reps Brian Ortega, also reps TJ Dillashaw. So my understanding is she also switched up management. So a lot of changes here, which for some fighters may work out, but I think in the case of Dern, it's actually worked against her. And like I said, the second I heard that she wasn't working with Jason Perillo, I don't know what's up. Now, they did mention on the broadcast, and again, we're just speculating here, that Perillo's gym did close down, but we saw him in the crowd at the fight, and it didn't look like he was working with Dern. Like, it just seems odd. Like, we've seen situations where fighters leave certain gyms. I'll give you an example. Jillian Robertson forever used to work with Dean Thomas. Dean Thomas, there was some sort of rule at American Top Team where Dean Thomas couldn't train there anymore if he was going to do training with other clients outside the gym or whatever. So like Jillian Robertson, for example, left ATT and went with Dean Thomas. So my kind of what I'm getting at here is, even if Perillo's gym closed, why couldn't she still work with him? It didn't really make any sense. Why wouldn't they at least do private sessions? So I don't know if something happened. I did notice that Perillo and Dern, I believe, are still following each other on Instagram, so I don't think there's any bad blood there. But I do wonder why her and Perillo weren't working when she was having so much success. So that's a bit of a weird thing. And then her just switching up management, again, that was a bit odd too. And I'm not saying, again, her switching up management is why she lost this fight, but you are noticing a lot of changes in a career that has not really been that long, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I've looked at that as well. And look, I have some empathy for Dern, right? Like, she's got a lot on her plate. She's got a divorce, which she's been very open about and talked about it weighing on her. She's a single mom. That's a lot to kind of carry into a fight. But it just, like, I don't know what you guys thought in this fight, but I just thought she looked very unprepared. And it's like when she fought Andrade, she didn't really know what to do. And there were a lot of key mistakes in this fight. And the reason I highlight this as opposed to any of the other losses that she had, it's the first stoppage loss she's had in her career. It's the first loss that she's had where, again, she just did not look in this fight at all. And it's such a key loss for her because what's been the knock on Mackenzie Dern throughout her career, she can't get over the hump. If you go look at her, some of her fights that she's had, right? You know, she had the Amanda Ribas fight, which is the first loss in the UFC. Now, that was right after she gave birth, right? She obviously 2018 to 2019. So there was some time off there. But she herself admitted she came back too soon. So I'm sure if these two fought now, that might be a different result. The Marina Rodriguez fight was really one of the first losses she had where, you know, she fought and didn't win. And it was a key fight for her to get over the hump and get in title contention. And she ended up losing that fight. Now, the Tisha Torres fight was close. I think that could have gone either way. And the Yan Xiaonan fight was close though, but at least Yan, we know, is a title contender is kind of what I'm getting at. But then the Angela Hill fight, like I said, I think a lot of us felt like she did turn a corner, but it didn't really work out at all in the Andrade fight because, again, it looked like in the Andrade fight, she didn't really belong there. So, kind of the reason I'm making this video is just talking about, I think, a key moment here. Now, she's 30 years old, but this is kind of the prime of her career right now. So I'm hoping, and I don't think I'm alone here, I'm hoping she can make some changes and really look at this loss and look at the fact that she needs a lot of structure and a lot of things that can get her to that next level, because there's something that's holding her back because she's got an exceptional ground game, right? Like, if she could find a way to get her opponents there, she's probably gonna have a lot of success. And I think her boxing is getting better, but obviously not enough to hang with someone like Andrade. And if you're gonna fight for a title, you need to be on that level. Otherwise, you're gonna drown here. So yeah, like I said, it was a really tough loss for Dern. It really showed to me that she's not a contender. Can she still be one? Possibly, but the time's ticking here. She's 30 years old. She's got to put things together right now, and you hope that she has the right people around her to make the proper choices here. But yeah, this was just if you ask me whose stock dropped the most at UFC 295, it would absolutely be Mackenzie Dern, because again, she had everything lined up for her to win this fight. She was fighting an opponent who was down and out. She was fighting an opponent that, again, she was coming off a big win in her last fight in Andrade. Yeah, she's still dangerous. She can still crack, but Dern, had never been finished. She figured that was enough to get her through the fight, but it didn't end up happening that way. She looked kind of lost out there. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What was your takeaway from this fight? And again, I want to be clear about this because I know I'm going to get the Mackenzie Dern simps coming out here and saying being hard on her. I want to see Dern do well. I'm just trying to unpack all this and figure out why she had such a bad performance on Saturday night. And is this something where she'll be able to turn it around, or do you think this is it? This is what we get with Mackenzie Dern, where she's going to be in this spot where she can't get over the hump and beat contenders. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Let's have a friendly discussion here in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.